Breaking news. Breaking news. This is going to be a follow-up from yesterday's midday power surge. And the breaking news right now trending, for those of you who are aware, and that is the Sunday Law Bill is now being debated there in the state of North Dakota. The hearings have begun and the votes will ensue shortly. These are signs of the last days, and I'm going to be covering that shortly. And secondly, we are going to see that the mantra, the phrase, "Make America Great Again," is also connected to the Sunday law legislation. We want to enforce Sunday laws, state by state, to make our state great again. Stay tuned for that. And thirdly, I'm going to be addressing the fact that SDA leaders are presently brainwashing their members to accept the mark of the beast, to accept Sunday worship by law, because they have already brainwashed their members to bow to Babylon and to receive the Pestilence 19 inoculation. We'll be getting into that shortly. Have you ever heard the statement, "Fool me once, shame on you, but fool me twice, shame on me"? Let's get right into it, my friends. Breaking news right now. As we're told in Inspiration, this was written several decades back, that when we begin to see these two movements, know the end is near. And what are the two movements? Take a look at the last two sentences. Number one, religion being brought into public schools. That's connected to Sunday legislation. Take a look at this, my friends. This is fresh off the press, January 11, 2025. Headline says, some U.S. lawmakers want more Christianity in the classroom. And this new administration, the Trump administration, could embolden their plans. The tagline below the title reads, conservative lawmakers across the U.S. are pushing to introduce more Christianity to public school, in the classrooms, testing the separation of church and state. What does Sister White say? When you see a movement, Lord have mercy on us today, to bring religion into public schools, the Sunday law is near. Not just a so-called return of Sunday blue laws, but the official Sunday law with persecution for God's commandment-keeping people, fulfilling Revelation 13, verse 15 through verse 17, the mark of the beast. All right, let's focus on this now. This is Project 2025. Linked to J.D. Vance, linked to President Trump, linked to Kevin Roberts, Heritage Foundation. Look at the state that's connected to Project 2025. It's Governor, North Dakota. And a few days ago, I shared, January 10th, 2025, that in North Dakota, they're pushing for religion into public schools. It's right there. And what does Sister White say? When they do that, next will come Sunday law.
Members of North Dakota's legislature have introduced a bill requiring a new addition to every public classroom in the state, the Ten Commandments.
That goes for all state educational institutions and public schools. WDAY News reporter Isaac Dienison is live for us tonight with a breakdown of the bill.
Okay,
Isaac.
Since I've covered that before, I won't spend time on this. I've played these two clips several times.
Some are worried about whether
So I won't spend time on that. We have a lot to cover today. So what does Inspiration say? Once they push for religion in public schools, the next great event is going to be Sunday legislation. Let's take a look at North Dakota. And before I go to North Dakota, understand this, it's going on in Texas. It's going on in Georgia. It's going on in Florida. It's going on in Oklahoma. It's going on in Louisiana. Headline, North Dakota considering a bill that would bring back the blue laws. just as Sister White said. Clip.
Law in North Dakota may be coming back if some legislators have their way.
Valley News Team's Bobby Fallett joins us live in studio to break it down for us. Bobby.
Stacey, Justin, a bill scheduled for a public hearing Wednesday morning is seeking to bring blue laws back to the state. You may remember North Dakota's blue laws and how they were repealed in 2019. If not, blue laws prohibit certain businesses from being open from midnight until noon on Sundays. The law would mostly affect retail outlets selling items like jewelry, clothing, vehicles, and even paint and lumber. Now, the repeal of North Dakota's previous blue laws was decided by only 2 votes. Now, the
Friends, when was the hearing scheduled for? Wednesday. That's today. And this is one of several reasons why we are behind schedule today. We had to sit and listen and watch the hearing, the different speakers, their talking points, so we could bring the news to you right now. Here is one of several clips. They're from North Dakota, as they are debating the Sunday Law bill at the state capitol. Clip 1.
Committee members, my name for the record is Matt Heilman. I am a state representative from North Dakota's 7th legislative district in Bismarck. I come before you today to testify in favor of House Bill 1150. This legislation is to undo the repeal from House Bill 1097 from the 2019 legislative session. And many have been asking me why the bill language is the way that it is. And it's, they say it's a bit odd, but that was what was existing in state law prior to the repeal in 2019.
So stop right there. Notice carefully what the repeal is all about. They want to bring back the laws that were in existence before they were suspended in 2019. My friends, put on your thinking caps right now. Since this hearing is to bring back the Sunday bill from 2019, the question is, when did those laws originate? 2018? No. 2010? No. They go back to the 1800s. You're not hearing me, my friends. Let's follow the bouncing ball. It goes back to the 1800s. So what happened to Seventh-day Adventists in the 1800s? There it is, friends. In the late 1800s, early 1900s, in Arkansas, in Alabama, in Tennessee, in Georgia. It's all there. It's all there, friends. And different states. What happened? They were prosecuted. Alabama, persecuted. Louisiana, placed in the chain gangs. And this is what we're being told is being discussed. And remember, North Dakota was the last of all the states in America to repeal its Sunday blue laws. Is it going to be the first to reinstate? Because based on biblical principles, the first shall be last and the last shall be first. Let's continue here, friends. So much in this today. Please invite someone. Share this. It's of the utmost importance.
The first benefit to blue laws is rest and recovery. Employees are working many long and exhausting hours throughout the week. Employees having additional time to rest and improve their mental health, which is a big problem in 2025, and their overall productivity. Second benefit is that it incentivizes community and family time. People have more time set aside to engage with their family members and engage in different community activities going on. The third benefit is for people who are religious. The bill lists the Sabbath as Sunday, or a person who in good faith observes a day other than Sunday as the Sabbath. And, I really don't think people should have to jump hurdles to practice their religion. It's unfair, unreasonable, and not charitable to tell employees to simply find another job or to deal with it. And I believe the small sacrifice to empower the working class to enjoy the benefits that I've mentioned for a few hours off every Sunday is, reasonable.
Oh, friends, somewhat deceptive. I just made some points here. Number one, notice, this is predominantly a Republican-controlled legislature. Understand that. His first point for promoting Sunday law, this Sunday bill, is number one for the workers. That sounds to me as if it is the talking points from the labor unions, the workers' unions. We have covered that ad nauseum. They're the ones saying that we want Sunday rest for workers. My friends, that's generally the talking points of the donkey party. This is the elephant party. And they're both now saying the same thing. Sunday for workers. Number two, Sunday for families. Won't spend time on that. That is the Pope's sentiment and rhetoric. Number three, he says, Sunday law for religious reasons. Now, if you notice how subtle and sly he was, he said Sunday, and then he added, well, other religious days. Stop it right there. Stop. The Sunday Blue Law bills that were repealed in 2019, did they tolerate Seventh-day Adventists? No, they did not. So why would he insert other Sabbaths? Why? Because he wants it to be palatable and acceptable to get the vote. Then, of course, they can come back and say, well, by the way, what we want to reinstate is not Saturday, the seventh day of the week, because we never had that in the first place. It's the first day of the week, Sunday. Very deceptive. Then he went on to say, all we want is a few hours off on Sunday. If you go back to history, inspiration, when Sunday worship, when Sunday rest was the law of the land, it was not just for a few hours, it was for the whole day. So they are deceiving you by degrees. Let me repeat that. This is deception by degrees. All we want, a few hours of rest for worship, and the rest you can do whatever you want to do. That is a deception by degrees. It's going to be the whole day. Watch carefully. Next.
You may or may not know this, but we have basically four structures in our world. We have, in terms of seasons, the month is by the moon and the year is by the sun. Those are all natural, observable things. That's why we have 365 days. The week, however, is very unique. There's only one source of the week, and it's not naturally observable. It comes directly from the Bible. And that's why I'm bringing it up. Because where do you first find the rest day? Some call it Sabbath. For this purpose, I think it's better to use the term rest. And that is in Genesis 1 and 2. Why is that unique?
Notice, it's the Bible he's using as his foundation. It's a bit lengthy, but listen. Next clip. Same speaker. Let's continue.
Why is that unique? Because I would like to propose that that's the difference when we're talking about a higher law than our laws. There's a difference between faith-based and design-based. Genesis 1 and 2 is a place where you find God's design. But we'd all agree that the closer I am to the design, the better it's going to go. And I think there's a lot of people in our culture, yes, the repeal happened by 150 legislators, but it didn't happen by a measure of the people. And I would argue that if the people really had a choice, especially those that do remember, in fact, I remember when the whole day was closed, I think that everybody in our culture would agree that, or I should say the majority of our North Dakota culture would agree that things work better under that design. Things that we have according to God's design. So
the first thing I want to say, do you realize this second speaker said something different than the first speaker? The first speaker argued only for a few hours. This one just stated, no, we want the whole day. Pause the video, rewind, and hit play. The whole day. Deception by degrees. And secondly, he mentioned his talking points is based on design from Genesis 1 and 2, which means creation. Listen to me. I wished I was in that hall, assembly right now. And I will just wait until my time. Congressman, a lawmaker, you're talking about design from creation. Where at creation did God say the first day of the week? That right there would nullify his argument. Seventh day, not first day. And secondly, we're in the Bible under a non-theocratic state. Does God say the civil magistrate can actually persuade and force its constituents to worship or rest on any day? It's not biblical. This would nullify his argument. Oh, I wish one day I can be there. Thirdly, he stated, it was 150 individuals that voted in 2019. It was repealed by 2 votes. 2 votes. Here's my point. Then he said, if it was brought to the people of North Dakota, it would have been a different outcome. Beloved, is that not fulfilling great controversy? Page 592. Who does inspiration say will call for the Sunday law? It's the people, Evangelist Ryan. It's the people. He's actually stating it. Bring it to the people. Let the people vote. And what will the people demand from the donkey side and the elephant side? Because under this umbrella of Sunday law, both parties with their constituents can find room at the table. Yes, for the elephant party, predominantly it's going to be religion and morality. For the donkey party, it's going to be, well, workers' rights, climate change. Everybody from both sides have a seat at the table. Continue. My friends, invite somebody. My friends, share this with somebody. It's very, very important. Next clip.
Now to the rest day and the Supreme Court. All the states had this, by the way, and virtually, and I've read them all. 6 years ago, I got a whole packet I could give you if you wanted of all, not just the founding fathers, but almost everybody during that time when they discussed the Sunday Blue laws were in favor of them. And guess what? They're the ones that gave us our liberty. So if we're talking about liberty and freedom for business and freedom for people, why would those who actually gave us the liberty and defined it for us have been all in favor of the Sunday Blue laws? That just doesn't make any sense.
So what this man is arguing is that because the founders actually supported Sunday law, it means that Sunday law is intrinsically based on freedom. That's not accurate. Point number 1, question. Are there things in your culture you grew up doing? It was the law of your culture, the law of your home, that years after hindsight, you realize that wasn't right. Several things. I could pause and insert several applications. However, he's dealing with the Constitution. Were there things in the Constitution that when it was written violated freedoms? And in latter years, hindsight, they came back and they edited as it were. Of course there was. Must I take that time now to give a top 3? This is what this man is pushing. The founders gave it to us. It must be based on freedom. Well, why did the founders establish a church and state union? Why did only church people could hold civil office? Why the founders, many of them, actually prosecuted and persecuted a man by the name of Roger Williams, who founded the actual state, Rhode Island? Why was that? Take a look at this, friends. I wish I was standing in that assembly and was given the microphone. Let's move on. Next.
It just doesn't make any sense. So we have to be careful how we define liberty. We should, if we want things to go better in our culture, shouldn't we define our liberty according to how those who designed and gave us our great nation? And I would argue that in part, the Sunday Blue laws and the 7-day week were a part of why we have had a great nation. And North Dakota was the last holdout. The Supreme Court then in the 60s ruled 3 times.
Listen.
I don't have them with me, but you could probably find it.
Listen.
3 times the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the Sunday Blue laws in the 1960s. Why? Because of the rest, that the state has a compelling interest in not just individuals to rest, not just families, but whole communities to all rest on the same day, that it is better for our culture. You may agree or disagree with that, I understand, but that was the basis of the Supreme Court rulings, that the state has a compelling interest in families, in rest, for a culture, and for workers.
So notice, this man is promoting not just Sunday laws in the state of North Dakota, but for the whole nation. That's what he's saying. But notice how deceptive he is. At first, he's promoting Sunday law bill based on religion, but he inserted Supreme Court ruling that says Sunday law is beneficial for secular purposes. So whichever way you want to slice it, they get their design objective. Sunday rest by law, Sunday worship by law. And notice who also said that. Stephen Wolfe, that Christian nationalist. It doesn't matter which way it's going to come from. Secular means or based on religion, we will get our Sunday law by a few months from now. Take a look at this, my friends. He said this is what makes North Dakota great. And that's why I inserted Sunday law makes America great. That slogan, mantra, is connected to the Sunday legislation. And it's not strange because many of the powerful men with clout behind the incoming administration are pushing for Sunday laws. That's what they're pushing for. It makes sense. Make America great again. Yeah. When? You got to go back to the time when they had Sunday laws. And here's actually what he referenced in the Supreme Court when they said that Sunday can be enforced as a law of the land for secular goals, even though it's connected to religion. That's what the talking points were. There it is, friends. Church attendance will increase if we bring back Sunday laws, just as Speaker Mike Johnson is pushing, just as Sister White says, they will bring a Sunday law for morality. Red words, morality, increase church attendance. And that's what Trump is saying. Now force the folks back to church. I won't play that clip right now. And Inspiration says a time is going to come. We won't only be forced to labor on Sunday, pardon me, forced to rest on Sunday. Let's get that correct. We'll be forced to rest on Sunday, worship on Sunday. And in connection with that, we are going to be forced to labor on God's seventh day Sabbath. That day is coming. And in North Dakota, when they say honor the Sabbath, they're talking about the papal Sabbath, which is Sunday worship by law. Please take a look at what I covered on yesterday during Midday Power Surge. With that in mind, I'm going to segue right now. Great Controversy, page 592. Those who honor the Bible Sabbath will be denounced as enemies of law and order. So imagine when they get their Sunday law enforced and God's faithful people, you and me, refuse to accept the Sunday worship by law. What would they denounce us as? Enemies of law and order. We are going to be labeled as terrorists. Don't forget that. Troublers of the people. But now, as I segue, inspiration says that we should expect that even our leaders, SDA leaders, they are going to persuade SDA members to bow to Babylon and to worship on Sunday. And inspiration tells us why they would do this. They are going to quote Romans 13, verse 1 onward, and they are going to misinterpret and misapply Romans chapter 13 and tell SDA members, you should bow to Babylon, you should worship on Sunday, because the Bible says we must submit to the government, the powers that be. This is what it says here in Great Controversy, page 592. Red words, ministers who deny the obligation of that divine law, God's divine law, will present from the pulpit the duty of yielding obedience to the civil authorities as ordained of God. And those who refuse are going to be labeled as enemies of law and order. Romans chapter 13 and verse number 1 says, let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there is no power but of God. The powers that be are ordained of God. They are going to misinterpret, misapply that statement. Listen attentively, my friends. Those of us who know Romans 13 understands that is the civil magistrate. It has nothing to do with our relationship with God. The first table of the Decalogue, especially how we worship, who we worship, on what day we worship. But they are going to misapply and misinterpret that statement to deceive the masses. Now, watch the point. Was that statement partially fulfilled? In the book Great Controversy, page 592, that ministers from the pulpits will tell you to yield obedience to the civil government. Yes, it happened during the pandemic. Take a look at this, my friends. Clearly, what did the SDA leader say? They said, submit to the government. And they quoted Romans 13, verse 1 through verse 7. It's right there, my friends. That means the SDA leaders, which includes the president, Elder Ted Wilson, failed that test and fulfilled Great Controversy 592 in part, because the pestilence 19 crisis was a matter of religion, a matter of your liberty of conscience, your faith. They failed. So what's going to happen when the Sunday law is enforced? And it is so near. Those who fail then, the majority, not all, will fail again. And that is going to be the last. Here is the up.
Some request letters of exemption. While being sensitive, of course, to the predicament and hardship of those who choose not to be vaccinated, the church has chosen not to issue exemption letters based on the prudence of not impinging upon the realm of state authority.
The church can only promote what it votes.
The church can only promote actually what it officially votes.
So it's clear what happened there, that they bowed to Babylon, joined with Babylon, and were persuading SDAs to do likewise. That means they were deceived by Babylon's sorceries. And sorcery, as you can see right there, brings us back to pharmakia. It's clear, my friends. It's clear. Now notice carefully. And that's why I'm going to say today again to all the SDA leaders that joined with Babylon and promoted Babylon's sorcery, stop the abuse. Notice, SDA leader said that this crisis was not a matter of religious liberty. It's right there. The official statement October 25th, 2021. It was not a matter of religious liberty. Well, take a look at this, friends. This is from the government. And what did the government leaders say who were on the right side of the issue? A handful of them, they said it was a win for the Constitution when SCOTUS struck down OSHA's inoculation mandate. It was a win for the Constitution. And they put in print Senator from, by the way, look at that. I didn't see that. This senator came from North Dakota. Look at that right there. Kevin Cramer. Red words. It's also a win for personal liberties. North Dakota. Look at that. The stars are aligning, as we would say. Connect the dots, as we would. It's clear, my friends. It's clear. Yet the SDA leaders say it's not a matter of liberty of conscience. Look at that. All over the media. The few who were on the right side of the conflict stated it's a huge win for freedom. It's there, my friends. A big win for your liberty of conscience. Even a few in the conference actually said it is a matter of liberty of conscience, but not the GC leaders and their puppets on a string. Everybody, I'm simply reiterating this point. Don't miss it. Just as the SDA leaders joined with Babylon and forced their members to partake of Babylon's sorceries, so they are going to misinterpret again inspired words to join with Babylon, accept the mark of the beast, worship on Sunday, and then persuade SDA members to do likewise. That's the point I'm making. I'm simply reiterating the foundation so we can build and make the point. And then I'm out of your presence. Look at this right here. Why did they, the SDA leaders, join with Babylon and promote Babylon's sorceries? Would you believe me if I told you it was based on fear of receiving financial penalties? It's right there. That's what they said. Look from not Idaho, Ohio conference. Please know that the administration seeks to comply with this order only out of compulsion. If we don't go along with the federal government, we are going to be fined financially upwards of $136,000. Listen what they put in print. We are going along because we're being forced. May I ask you a question? When the mark of the beast is enforced, is it going to be optional or compulsive? Somebody talk to me. So if they're bowing now because it's based on compulsion, what will they do when the mark of the beast is enforced? Contrastingly, in Daniel 1, was it a compulsion to partake of ancient Babylon's health protocol? Yes, but force stood. In Daniel 3 and Daniel 6, was it a compulsion to bow and worship the image and bow and forsake your form of worship and worship based on the government? Yes, but 4 stood again. But the majority of God's professed people bowed and were lost. That's the point I'm making, friends. It's right here. Now, this is Idaho conference. I knew I had something on Idaho. Look at the 2 red arrows. Fines could be as much as $136,000 per violation. Per violation. That's why we have to go along. Last bullet point, red arrow. if the organization is bankrupted. So what were they afraid of? Financial penalties, safe to serve local and international, SDAs worldwide. Since they were afraid of financial penalties, as a result, they joined with Babylon and forced SDAs to do likewise. What's going to happen when the mark of the beast is enforced? Friends, this has to be repeated because sometimes we have forgotten. Take a look at this right here. This is Great Controversy, page 607. Tell me which side these SDA leaders are going to be on. It says, as the movement for Sunday enforcement becomes more bold and decided, the law will be invoked against commandment keepers. They will be threatened with what things, my friends? Fines and imprisonment. When the Sunday law is enforced, God's people will be threatened with fines and imprisonment. What will God's faithful people do then? Next sentence, same paragraph. But the steadfast answer is from God's faithful people, show us from the word of God our error. We're not going to bow. As Luther did not bow, we will not bow. Oh, my friends. Is the point clear? I hope so. It needs to be repeated. Watch carefully now. In volume 581, inspiration says clearly, the time is not far distant. The test will come to every soul. The mark of the beast will be forced upon us. Who will bow? Those who have step by step yielded to worldly demands and conform to worldly customs. They are the ones who are going to be the ones bowing. Why? They don't want to subject themselves to derision, penalties, insult, threatened imprisonment, and death. At that time, many of the bright stars will go out in darkness. And the paragraph before that tell us what they will be promoting. It's right there, my friends. What would they be promoting? They will be promoting science, falsely so-called. Trust the science. It's right there, friends. Will they bow? Yes, they're going to bow. And that's why we have far more to fear from within than from without. Friends, I want to say this. Not only, and I'm going to slow it down, very important, not only did SDA leaders and the leaders of the organizations bowed to Babylon, joined with Babylon, because they were afraid of financial penalties, but they did so to receive finance. Did you catch that? They bowed and went along because they wanted monies from Babylon. Who funds our hospitals? Not only SDAs, but the government. Go along or receive penalties. Oakwood is on record. They went along to receive government funding. They were selling out Christ. They sold out Christ's truth. Southern, same thing.
Now,
Loma Linda, same thing. They sold out God's people for money, government money. Stop it right there, preacher. They did not care how many of you lost your jobs because they didn't assist you. And 99% of the companies and employers you work for, 99% wanted a letter of exemption based on your religious faith from your pastor, from your church organization. 1%, you could write your own letter. And the leaders of the SDA didn't care if you lost your job, but they said, make sure you bring in your tithe and offering. They sent their deacons to your home. It must be repeated to make sure they collected. your tithe and offering. Didn't care if your children had no food. You could not pay your rent or your mortgage. They did not care if you went along with Babylon's elixir and died. Didn't care about that. They were protective of themselves, which showed that they are not true shepherds. They are hirelings. John chapter 10. It must be repeated. They didn't care that people died. Didn't care about that. Now, friends, watch this. Next point. Very, very important. What statement did the SDA leaders read, published, misinterpreted, misapplied intentionally? Keyword, intentionally. To persuade SDA members to bow to Babylon, receive Babylon's sorceries. Is that statement on your screen? It must be repeated. It must be repeated. Misquoting, misinterpreting statements in the spirit of prophecy and evading, yes, foregoing all the other statements that are clear on the issue because they were deceptive. They were traitors in high places. And that's what they did. So the question is now, when the Sunday law is passed, what statement are they going to misinterpret and misapply intentionally to persuade SDAs to worship on Sunday? Here it is. Do you remember yesterday I told you I had a part 2, but I told you I would come back today? Here it is. This is Sister White. She writes, I will try to answer your question as to what you should do in the case of Sunday laws being enforced. Seventh-day Adventists were to show their wisdom by refraining from their ordinary work on that day, devoting it, that Sunday, to missionary effort. Stop it right there. Did Sister White say go to church on Sunday? But you watch how they are going to spin, skew this statement and a few others to persuade SDAs to worship on Sunday. Shall we continue? Yes, let's continue. She writes, to defy the Sunday laws will but strengthen in their persecution the religious zealots who are seeking to enforce them. SDAs, give them no occasion to call you lawbreakers. One does not stop it right there. Imagine what they're going to say. If your Sister White said, don't let them call you a lawbreaker. Wink, wink. So go to church on Sunday. This is their modus operandi. Misquoting inspiration to justify apostasies and abominations. So, beloved, I'm making sure I emphasize and re-emphasize this statement now so when it happens, you can be aware. Question. Let's go pre the pandemic. If you were aware, everybody listen attentively. Very important. If you were aware of the statement about D.E. Robinson and Ellen White and so on, this one, lest you miss it, this one, preacher. If you were aware of that statement on the screen and that one from Selected Messages, Book 2, page 303, and you were warned before the pandemic that the SDA leaders might or will use this statement, misconstrue it intentionally to deceive you, to go along with Babylon's sorcery, you would have been armed, prepared, and ready to combat it, right? How many people, when they heard this statement from GC leaders and their conference leaders and local pastors, went along with Babylon's sorcery? Many. So what can I do now? So what if I arm you before the crisis and say, watch out for this statement and that statement? They will try to misconstrue it to deceive you to keep Sunday. Would that not put you at an advantage? So you won't make the same mistake twice. As I said, listen, if you want, deceive me, fool me once, what is that? Shame on you. But deceive me, fool me twice, shame on me. Let's continue here, my friends. Sister White says, one does not receive the mark of the beast because he shows that he realizes the wisdom of keeping the peace by refraining from work that gives offense. All right, don't stop there. When we devote Sunday to missionary work, the whip will be taken out of the hands of the arbitrary zealots who would be well pleased to humiliate Seventh-day Adventists. Now stop right there. Is there coming a time when it doesn't matter what we do, even if we are wise as serpents, harmless as doves, are we still going to be captured, prosecuted, and persecuted? Yes. Was Christ wise as a serpent? Was Christ harmless as a dove? But what happened? They put the man on a cross. So that day is coming. Continue. Sunday can be used for carrying forward various lines of work that will accomplish much for the Lord. On this day, don't miss this, open-air meetings and cottage meetings can be held. House-to-house work can be done. Does Sister White say go to a church on Sunday? That's not what she says. It's house-to-house meetings. Public evangelism, open air. Just imagine how they are going to misinterpret and misapply this and other statements. And there are a few more I will come to in subsequent lessons. Those who write can devote this day to writing their articles. Whenever it is possible, let religious services be held on Sunday. I can just hear them now. Make these meetings intensely interesting. Friends, it's talking about open-air evangelism. That means if your local SDA church, listen to me, opens up on Sunday, invites you to come to Sunday Keeping Church because Sister White says A and B, don't attend. Likewise, if a local Sunday Keeping Church invites you, don't attend. If the government says, come here on Sunday, go here on Sunday, don't go. So, Pastor, what if they prosecute me? For Christ, be willing to die, death before dishonor, or the transgression of God's laws, should be the motto of every Christian. Volume 5, page 147. That's it. What if they persecute me? I should think, and your belief should be, we would rather die than sin. That's it. That day is coming. So beware how they are going to misconstrue this statement. All right. Volume 5, page 712. Now I'm going to reiterate and close. Reiterate and close. This is a second statement from Volume 5. She says, they are going to quote Romans 13, verse 1. Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers. And this will be done during the mark of the beast crisis. Just as Ganun Diop said, listen, we cannot give you a letter of exemption because there is no international law that says we must give it to you. Then Diop said, we can give you a letter for Sabbath off because international law says that. So what's going to happen when there is a national Sunday law, international Sunday law? He's telling you we will go along with it. That's the clip right here. And the transcript is right there. I won't play that clip. I won't play that. I won't play that. I won't play that. Just as Ganun Diop said, personal conviction is not corporate responsibility. That's, I'm going to play that statement and close.
We have been at the General Conference accused recently for promoting vaccines.
And he said we never did that.
We have not promoted that.
Lies.
But the church made a statement.
Move on. Here it is now.
Adventists have freedom of conscience.
Listen.
To
make your own choice. However,
all right, that doesn't mean that the church has to stand for the person.
Beloved, stop right there. That's exactly what Sister White said in Great Controversy, page 608. As the storm approaches, as the Sunday law approaches, leaders in the SDA movement, when faithful SDAs are brought before the courts, these apostate SDA leaders would turn on you. 689-777-5198. What point stood out to you today? 689-777-5198. What points stood out to you today in the lesson? Don't let them misconstrue these statements to deceive you. Many, if they had known of the statement, they would not have been deceived in 2020. And that's why you must be armed before the crisis. Caller, you're live on Safe to Serve. What point stood out to you today from the lesson?
Hello, Pastor Henriquez and everybody that's listening. The point that stood out to me most today is that, like we all know, and we've known for years and years, that time is short. And whatever we have to do quickly because time is wrapping up. And also, I want to know if I could be able to put a request to your viewers, please.
Pardon?
I wanted to know if I could be able to put a request out before your viewers.
No, just go ahead and call me back. Let's talk about that shortly.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Beloved, all these things are transpiring. And notice what this says here. This is Pentecost 2025. How much time was spent in preparing for Pentecost 2025? How much time? I'm going to come back to this on tomorrow. I am going to address Pentecost 2025 tomorrow in light of what we have been covering yesterday and today. 689-777-5198. A time is going to come when every earthly support will be cut off. That's what Sister White says. Every earthly support will be cut off. That's not only from the government, but from also leaders in the SDA movement. That time has come. I want to hear from you today. What points stood out to you in the lesson? How can you be found prepared in these last days? And when we come back on tomorrow, I am going to focus on Pentecost 2025. Let's pray. Father in heaven, we're thankful today for your many blessings. These lessons must stain our minds. May we be found prepared and not to be deceived. Deception is rife, rampant, prevalent among us. And if we're not prepared, we're going to be beguiled. Keep us faithful, dear Lord. Keep us faithful. May the book be open to us. And may we understand the urgency of the times in which we're living. May we implement the 5 keys of survival. We thank you for hearing. Thank you for answering. In the name of Jesus, amen. Caller, you're live on Safe to Serve. What point stood out to you today?
Well, what point stood out to me is that men are not infallible. And you have to realize that these leaders, they're men. And so they're sinful, just like we all are, and they're going to make mistakes. And that our salvation is an individual thing. It's not connected to a church or a person, but you should be where you will be receiving present truth for yourself because you need that light, right? And the closer you're drawn to God. So what I would say is these people need to recognize not because we're fellow Seventh-day Adventists means that that person is good. A lot of these people, I mean, the devil goes to church too. I think it's in Zambia. I heard from a fellow Seventh-day Adventist that the Zambian leader there, that is a Seventh-day Adventist, is more draconian than the previous leadership. And there have been reports of kidnapping and stuff, and this is happening under a Seventh-day Adventist. So let us remember that they're human too, and they can also too be wolves. Thank you.
Thank you, my sister. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that. Friends, by God's grace, I'll see you on tomorrow. And let's be prayerful. Let's be watchful. God bless. Maranatha.